I only watched 9 films in March. That was mainly because I had my exams and then I had an internship. I went on a small vacation in the middle of those two. So I didn't get a lot of time to watch a lot of films. But let's start. The first film I watched in March was Do the Right Thing. It's a film from Spike Lee, and I think it's the most Spike Lee film that I've seen. I don't know how to explain what I mean by that, but it's an entertaining film. There's comedy, there's drama, there's a lot of conflict that's happening. The entire film is about conflict and about heat, and not just the physical heat but the heat between people, between communities, and it's really well told. It has some really unique techniques that he uses to create impact, and I think it works really well. I mean, he's a legend. Next, I watched Muramba. I'd seen it before. I watched it at Mami a couple years ago. But the film itself, I was not a huge fan of it, but I watched it again just for research. I was doing research for a film that I was making. Um, the film itself is not too bad, but I feel like the main story feels a little forced. It's about a guy and a girl who have broken up, and the guy's father and mother are basically plotting to bring them back together, and it just feels very forced. The characters don't feel compatible. You When you see the reasons why they broke up, you never feel like, oh, they should be together, or there's no moment where you feel that. I also am not a huge fan of Mithila Palkar's acting, especially in this film. But yeah, it's an okay film. Next, I watched How to Train Your Dragon 3: The Hidden World. Um, and I'm a huge fan of the first two movies, which is why probably I didn't like this one so much, because I had really high expectations. Um, Toothless is probably one of my favorite characters in films ever. And I really like the first two films. The third one is not too bad, but it doesn't have the heartwarming, the charm that the first two films had. Next, I watched Mard Ko Dard Nahi Hota. It's about a guy who has a condition, so he doesn't feel pain. It's sort of like Kick-Ass, but the treatment is very different. It's done in a very cheesy comedic fashion. It's almost like it's almost inspired and almost parodying the 80s and 90s martial arts films, and it does it really well. The performances are quite nice, especially from Gulshan Devaya. Next, I watched Shadi Mein Zarur Aana. It's a film that I watched only because it has Rajkumar Rao in it, and it's not a particularly bad film, but it's also not something that I really liked. Especially the main story, the main plot point is something that I do not agree with, and it just feels extremely forced to have a resolution that happens based on something that is so problematic, and the characters seem to be all fine and dandy with it. I don't think that would cut cheese in the real world, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of the movie. Next, I watched Dear Dad. This is a film that I actually went out to watch in the theaters back when it came out in 2016, but I was literally the only one who bought a ticket for the screen, so they had to cancel the show. It was that poorly received. And the film is not particularly great, but I really respect the fact that it told a story of a father coming out to his son in 2016, which was a fairly different time than today in terms of gay rights and just about visibility of homosexuality in media. Next, I watched Bareli Ki Barfi. It's one of my favorite guilty pleasure films. It's not even a guilty pleasure so much, but it's a movie that's quite entertaining. It has some problematic character traits, especially with Ayushmann Khurrana's character, and you really hate him at some point, but that's part of the story. But the resolution is really well done. It's like really well handled. It's a movie that I've seen a lot of times, and I think I'll continue to watch it over and over again. Next, I watched 10 Things I Hate About You. It's a film from 1999. It's about high school romance and again some problematic elements, but it again resolves pretty well. The characters are quite nice. It's funny, it's romantic, it's a film that you can just watch without thinking too much about it. And the last film of March was The Change Up. It's a body switcheroo film with Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman, and it's not particularly great. I couldn't even remember, just based on the title, I couldn't even remember what the film was all about. I had to go and check out the IMDb page and look at its trailer to see, oh, this is the film that, yeah, it's really forgettable, not particularly great. So, yeah, I watched 9 films in March, and it has been a slow month, but hopefully there'll be more stuff in April, right? I'll see you in the next one.